everyone, my name's Amy and I have a 6-year-old autistic son.
I need to get super close.
Do you?
Yeah.
Do you want to say hello?
Yeah, I want to get super close.
Okay, this is for YouTube.
Hello, I am with you.
So this is Freddie. Freddie, how old are you, Freddie? 6. And Freddie is autistic. Yeah, do you know what that means?
Yeah.
Yeah, what does that mean?
It's not school.
No school, okay. So Freddie's off school today because they've had a leak and the heating's not working. So school's closed.
Yeah.
And he's back in his pyjamas. So I've been meaning to set up a YouTube page for a long time now. But caring for Freddie, working, running a house and general life always get in the way.
I am laying in my pajamas.
Yes, he's staying in his pyjamas.
But Mummy's not staying in his pajamas.
Her pyjamas.
Her pajamas.
Mummy's dressed.
Yeah, I'm staying in my pajamas, and I will become my mother. 2 years old, 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, and then 6 years old because I'm 6 years old.
You are 6 years old now. So when Freddie was 2, we started the process of getting an autism diagnosis.
Yeah, and I'm 6 years old.
Yes. Oh, and also,
What
I wanted to say was the reason I come on here and share our journey.
Yeah.
I'm not a professional. I don't claim that I know everything. What I do have is lived experience.
Mummy,
Yeah.
I'm moaning.
Lived experience.
Let's mine together.
Okay, so I've got lived experience and I want to share that because I know how difficult it can be and that there's such a lack of support out there for people in our situation.
Okay, it's it from Freddie Work. Bye guys. It's the end of Freddie Work and it's not the end of Freddie Work.
Right, where were we? Let's start again. So Freddie, who you've now met, is autistic. He's 6 years old. I went through the diagnosis process with him. It started when he was about 2. We always knew from when he was a baby that there was something different. And then he was delayed in all of his development. He didn't roll over until he was like 11 months old. He didn't sit up until he was 1. He didn't walk until he was about 16, 17 months. He didn't talk until just after he turned 4. So everything has been delayed in that respect. We realised early on that there were lots of sensory needs there. He was at nursery. I went back to work during COVID when he was a few months old. I worked from home initially, and then once the nurseries opened up, he went to nursery, and that was when he was 1. He had his first birthday there. And because he's a September baby, he was there for 4 years. So he was nearly 5 when he finished. When he got to about 2, I kept mentioning to the nursery staff that I think he might be autistic. Obviously with his development he wasn't walking when he first started there, so it was getting to a point where they'd get concerned about his development and then all of a sudden he'd start doing it, so that didn't progress into anything. So I said that I think he's autistic. They agreed, so they said let's look at the process for diagnosis. Now what I've learned is when you have a child that is already in school 5 years plus, that diagnosis is an extremely long and hard process and it takes years. If you recognise this before the child is 5 and they're in nursery, it is easier. It's not easy, but it's easier. It's a quicker process. When we started seeing the signs of autism, there wasn't much support around. I've worked with autistic children and adults before, so I knew a lot of the signs already, and various bits and pieces about autism. Obviously, you know, not an expert in it, but I could recognise what was happening. So you look for support. Well, there is no support. There's hardly any support. So I started looking on Facebook and Instagram to see if there was anybody in a similar situation. And I started finding a lot of pages on Instagram. I mean, back then, this was, so Freddie was 2, he's now 6, so this is 4 years ago. There were a few pages, there weren't loads. So I started following them on my normal Instagram account, and it resonated with me. There were so many people that were looking for somebody to share their lives, to show this is what we're going through and you're not alone. So I ended up setting up our own Instagram page where I was sharing the diagnosis process. And I always maintained that if it helped one person, then I'm happy. You know, if one person knew that they weren't alone, then that's all I wanted from it.
Hi guys, I'm back.
And that happened. So
No. I want to say hi guys, I'm back.
Okay.
And Freddie. Hi guys, I'm back. And you can say Freddie's back.
Freddie's back. I think Freddie's a little director. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah? Can we turn that down so I can talk to the camera?
Yeah.
Thank you. So yeah, I started sharing our diagnosis journey, and then, you know, was getting messages of people saying we're going through similar. It's like teaching yourself a profession, navigating the SEN system, knowing all the legal processes. It's a bit of a postcode lottery. It depends on where you live as to what the process is and how good the service is. So I'd share stuff, but it wouldn't necessarily be the same as someone living in a different area. It was also like a therapy for me, like an outlet. It's so difficult when you live with a child with additional needs because your world is different to everybody else's. We embrace that, but we do recognise that there are times when it is hard. So connecting with other parents or carers that just get it, and seeing other children similar to Freddie, obviously every autistic child is different, but seeing other similarities, the struggles that other parents and carers go through this whole process, it helps. You don't feel as alone. So this is one of the reasons I set up the diagnosis journey on Instagram. So I shared sort of regularly as I could, updating the process of the diagnosis. Freddie got his diagnosis on the 5th of October 2022, which was 10 days after his 3rd birthday. So it was just over a year after we started the process. Then we had all of the speech therapy appointments, bladder and bowel, all of that, which I'll do separate videos on all of them. So that took up a lot of time, bearing in mind whilst all this is ongoing, I'm working full-time, his dad's working full-time, and there are multiple appointments that you have to attend. There are multiple sleep diaries, food diaries, paperwork like DLA paperwork, and that I had to book a couple of days off work for to navigate through. It's difficult. So I was sharing that as and when I could on my Instagram. Once we got through that, it was then the process of the EHCP. So then we were navigating that because he was due to start school, and I didn't want him to start school without an EHCP because I know once they're at school, the schools can drag their feet and it's more difficult to get one. So I wanted to make sure that that was in place before he started school. He was due to start school in the September. We got his EHCP through on the last day of term in the July. That's how close it was. We then went to the school and had a meeting. They named the mainstream school, which we didn't want, but we had a meeting with the school and they said they could meet needs basically if he had one-to-one provision. So we agreed to, we conceded and said, okay, we'll try it and see how he is, mainly because a lot of the kids he was at nursery with were going up into reception. So we live in a village, so like lots of people know each other and stuff, so we were comfortable with that. The kids had grown up with Freddie, they know him already. We got there on the first day and they didn't have that provision in place because it was the last day of term last year. They hadn't had time to sort that out, so we were about to take Freddie home and they got someone in to be with him. So obviously that process, navigating school for the first year, he's in year 1 now, so he's done a year. It's all new, I've not had to do this before, learning as we go. I just stopped sharing really our journey because I was exhausted. I had work stuff going on, I was doing a qualification that took 12 months. I don't know how I did that on top of all of this and the EHCP and everything as well. So I just had a year of not really doing much. Now Freddie's older, we're settled into school. He's been discharged from his consultant back to the GP, so we don't need to have... No, that's the dog. We don't need to have regular appointments. We've discharged from bladder and bowel because he's now using the toilet. Speech therapy, we can dip into that as and when we need, and we're working on a lot of that at school as well, as part of his provision in his EHCP. So I want to share again, and this is why I've set up YouTube, because I want to share our journey. I want to do videos about each aspect. Now we're through it and out of it, I want to be able to share what we went through. Obviously it's not the same everywhere and things change, but I want to share what we went through, how we got there, the various laws, and for awareness, to see if there's anybody else that might find this information useful, because 4 years ago when I was starting this journey, that's what I needed. And thanks to Instagram, the few people that were already active on there at the time with their platforms, it really helped. Absolutely helped. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for those families sharing. So I want to be able to give that back and share as well, but in a bit of a more of an in-depth way on YouTube. So what I plan to do over the weeks is various videos, what we went through for the diagnosis process, what we went through with each individual service, what the assessment itself was like. I will share the paperwork that we got. I will share about the EHCP. I'll also share about our day-to-day lives, because like I said, all autistic children are individual. Each child has their own needs, but there are snippets that you may find useful to you. So from other people I've learnt certain things that have helped. There's also, it's trial and error, so I've tried other things, they haven't worked for us, but unless you try you don't know. So my plan is to share a lot of that on here, and day-to-day life as well. What is life like? Because I love following people on YouTube and Instagram and watching what they do with their kids, and there's not many with neurodivergent kids that are sharing. Obviously our lives are a lot different, the things we can do due to sensory needs, accessing communities, socialising, that sort of thing. But I love following all of these content creators and families on YouTube and seeing what they're getting up to. I started sharing like my weekly food shop on Instagram and TikTok, and people love it because it gives them an idea, like, what are you buying this week? Because being an adult is hard and sometimes boring, and you stick to the same stuff each week. So it's just like getting ideas. What are other people doing? So I want to give a little bit of an insight into that everyday life, as well as the support for the autism. I'll also share sort of what's happening in the news, updates, current affairs, that sort of thing. So currently there is a send reform ongoing with the government, and a lot of our community have pushed for this because there isn't enough provision, there isn't enough support. There was a white paper, and this has all been delayed now. It said until early 2026, which is where we are now. But some of this white paper has been leaked. And what it says in there is it's basically all down to cost. So the government want to save money. They think there's too many diagnoses being given out. There's too many EHCPs. Now, coming from a SEND community, I know that the EHCP process is not fit for purpose. It's too long. There are so many children that aren't getting support. There are not enough specialist placements. Children are being forced into mainstream where they can't cope, and the schools can't cope. The schools cannot cope to meet those children's needs. So instead of building more SEND schools and making more SEND places, what the government want to do is put more money into mainstream and force more children into mainstream. Part of the EHCP process is that the parent has a right to request an assessment, they can request a review, it can go to tribunal, and we know that 99% of parents that end up at tribunal because they are refused to issue, refused to send place, 99% of those parents win. It is all about money. The councils don't have enough money. They use delay tactics. They hope that by making this process longer and making parents go to tribunal, that they just concede and don't follow through. But so many parents are actually following through and winning that the government have realised that it's not working anymore. With these platforms, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and families like mine sharing information, the government don't want you to know your rights. They don't want you to know the laws. They don't want you advocating and fighting because it's costing them money. So there are websites like IPSEA, IPSEA, I'll put a link in the bottom, and that has template letters with all of the legal information in for you to send to your local authority at each stage of the EHCP when they're not doing what they should be legally and where they're dragging their heels. I used these myself when I was getting Freddie's EHCP. There's lots of people sharing advice and information now, so much so that parents are standing up for their children's rights. So in my opinion, what's happened is the government weren't expecting people like us, Joe Public, to research all of the laws and use that to our advantage or our children's advantage to make sure they get what they are entitled to. Now that's happening, they are trying to stop that to save money. One of the things that was leaked in the white paper was the government want to put the responsibility for EHCPs back on the schools. So parents won't be allowed to request an assessment. Parents won't be allowed to challenge, effectively taking parents' rights away. They want to send parents' rights away because we're doing such a good job at fighting and advocating for our children, it's costing them money. So instead of addressing the problem that the education system isn't fit for purpose and that it's not that there is more autism or ADHD or other neurodivergent conditions, it's that we have knowledge and education, so we're more aware of it. And there is a generation of us, like me, millennials, that struggled in school because we were just odd, weird, different, when actually we were probably all autistic and still are. And then because it's a genetic condition, our children now have it, and we're fighting so hard for our children because we don't want them to go through what we went through. It's now costing the government money. So instead of addressing the real problem, they just want to take our rights away. Because let's face it, most of these people, the MPs, people in the cabinet, the shadow cabinet, they don't have lived experience of autistic children or children with additional needs, disabilities. They're just not aware. They don't know what our lives are. And this is why we share to say that this isn't okay. It's not right. That's my view on it. They just want to take our rights away because us knowing our rights and advocating for our children is costing them too much money. The education system currently isn't fit for purpose. It's hundreds of years old. Over time, everything has evolved. education has stayed the same. Okay, there's various things that have been implemented, but basically it is you go to a classroom 9 till 3. And that just doesn't work for everybody. So all of these things I will be talking about throughout my journey on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, just sharing my views, because if I'm thinking it, lots of other people might be. Like, who am I to put my information out of there? Well, I'm just a parent of a SEND child, giving my views and experiences on what we see and how we feel. If there is anything in particular that you want to know, that you want to see, that you want information on, then drop a comment. We can cover that topic. I can do research. Everything I know about, talk about, share is because I've researched it, and other families have helped as well, sharing their information. In this world, knowledge is power. So if I can give back something and help other families and give information, then that's what I want to do. So feel free to drop me a message, pop a comment in to let me know what particular things you want to know about. Videos I plan on doing, like I said, signs of autism that we recognised in Freddie, the diagnosis process itself, diagnosis assessment, the information given in the diagnostic report, speech therapy, bladder and bowel service, toilet training, foods, eating safe foods, the EHCP process, schooling, DLA, disability living allowance, and much, much more. If there's anything you want to know specifically, let us know.